After 37 years, Saint Seiya finally receives a live-action film treatment in the form of Knights of the Zodiac. What is Knights of the Zodiac? Knights of the Zodiac is a film based off the popular anime and manga series known as Saint Seiya. Outside of the US, it was a worldwide phenomenon. The film is about Seiya, an orphan looking for his lost sister Patricia. On his journey, he fights in underground fights, which is where billionaire Almond Kido notices the boy. When Seiya accidentally taps into his cosmos energy, Kido identifies Seiya as a knight of Athena. Kido approaches Seiya and tells him to follow him because otherwise Garad will arrive at any moment to abduct Seiya. Before Seiya can even react, Garad arrives with Black Knights and Seiya and Kido make a run for it. With the help of Mylok, Seiya and Kido escape. Kido introduces Seiya to his daughter Sienna and then explains to Seiya that the world is far different than what people believe and that the ancient Greek gods are all real. He says that his daughter Sienna is actually the reincarnation of the goddess Athena and that she was given to him as an infant from a knight in gold. Of course, Seiya thinks the guy is crazy until he witnesses Sienna have a burst of cosmos energy that shakes the earth. Seiya then realizes that everything Kido said is true. He then agrees to meet with Marin, a silver knight that will train Seiya. Under Marin's tutelage, Seiya learns how to tap into his cosmos energy and earns his Pegasus armor. But he also discovers that Kido knows more about his missing sister than he let on. Seiya leaves the island to confront Kido, but instead learns more about his own destiny. Seiya soon finds himself in a battle with Garad, as well as another mysterious knight known as Phoenix Nero. We'll start with the bad stuff first. First off, Makenyu, the actor who plays the main character of Seiya, he does have a certain charm about him, but his acting is a bit stale and stiff. Fortunately, I feel he will only improve going forward, so it isn't a big deal for this, and I think he'll be much better in a sequel, but it does kind of take away from the experience of this film. Seiya should be more charismatic, and not the angsty character Makenyu plays him as. Cassius, played by Nick Stahl, he's a good enough villain, but they didn't really explain Cassius's hatred of Seiya. Initially, Seiya seemed like a minor annoyance to Cassius at the most, but when it came down to a deal with Garad, it seemed as if Cassius despised Seiya for no reason whatsoever. It wasn't a smooth transition for the character at all. The length of the film probably could have been cut down about 10 minutes to make it flow better. The training sequences were really great, but they seemed too stretched out, and at some point it kind of seemed redundant. In the special effects department, I think overall they did well. Some of the VFX looked a little cheap at times, but that's understandable considering it had a smaller budget. This isn't like Guardians of the Galaxy with a massive $250 million budget. Knights of the Zodiac only had a $60 million budget. That's not a big budget these days. What they did with the VFX were pretty great actually, considering the budget, but for today's standards, it does kind of look cheap at times. I think the hardest thing about this film for me was the armors. Marvel and DC learned a while ago that fans want comic-accurate costumes for their heroes on screen. I think fans overall prefer comics accurate to realistic or even functional. I mean, ideally you'll get all three, realistic, functional, and comics accurate. That's the best, but if it doesn't look like the comic book, fans tend to hate it. I feel that hurt this film more than anything else. I wanted to see a Saint Seiya film, but with the armor looking nothing like the manga, it was hard to feel gratified. I didn't really feel like I was getting a Seiya film. Of course, this can all be improved upon in a sequel. After all, the armors do evolve in the anime and manga, so they might as well evolve in the films as well. But for the bad, that's kind of it. This movie sets up the universe of Saint Seiya very well. This is basically a prelude to everything in the anime and manga, and I think it serves its purpose well. Now that everything is established, a sequel can go all out and imitate the manga very closely, and it would be widely accepted by non-Saint Seiya audiences. The film left hints of a much bigger picture nicely. They mentioned the other gods that will be reincarnated, the Gold Knight that gave Kido the baby Athena, and the other kids with Cosmos that Kido located throughout the world, and the lost Sagittarius gold pendant. When Athena says they need to locate the other Knights of the Zodiac, you can't help but be curious who they are, and for Saint Seiya fans, you have to be excited knowing she's talking about Dragon Shiryu, Cygnus Hyoga, Andromeda Shun, and many others. Cast members like Sean Bean and Mark Dacascos, they played their roles very well, as to be expected by such film veterans. Madison Eisman, who played Athena, gave a decent enough performance that made you care about her character and made you want to see her grow in a sequel. But I think the standout performance of the film would have to be Diego Tinoco, who played Phoenix Nero. His character was as mysterious as he was threatening when he chose to be. His motivations are unclear, making him even more mysterious, but Tinoco pulled it off very well. To top it off, the fight choreography is fantastic in this film. We wanted to watch more and more fights, and I can only imagine what a sequel could be considering they introduced the other knights. But watching Pegasus Seiya and Phoenix Nero fight, that was worth the admission alone in my opinion. Overall, as a lifelong fan of the Saint Seiya anime and manga, I was so excited to see this movie, and the potential for a 6-film saga thrills me to the bone. Unfortunately, many people were prejudging the movie before it even came out, and I think the film will ultimately flop, especially since it's only on 588 theaters in the US. But existing fans' fears are that it would be just another Dragon Ball evolution. I'm not sure why someone would not go to the movie if they are a fan of the manga or anime. I mean, if it sucks, then don't go see the sequel. But if it's great and you don't support it now and you find out it's great later, it's too late, you know? We'll never get a sequel. We'll never get to see how this plays out. But knowing what could occur in the next few movies, it saddens me if this film series does not continue. The Galaxian Wars could offer us arena-type battles that introduce audiences to the other Bronze Knights, such as Dragon Shiryu, Cygnus Hyoga, and Andromeda Shun, and then lead into the battle for Sanctuary, which would show audiences who these Golden Knights are and why baby Athena was taken in the first place. Then we could go deep under the oceans to Poseidon's kingdom for Athena's war with Poseidon, and then straight to the underworld where Athena and her knights would face Hades, the god of the underworld, and his undead warriors. These 6 films would be epic on every level if we could just get past this first film. The movie has its weaknesses and definitely has room for improvement, but nothing that can't be fixed and upgraded in a sequel. The film works well in setting up the universe, and that has to be the hardest part of adapting anime to film. Anime has 26 or more episodes to really develop their characters, so it has an advantage over a 2-hour film. So you kind of need, when they're adapting to live action, you kind of need to give them some leeway. There are differences between this and the anime which might bother true Saint Seiya fans, but I wish they would realize there are also major differences between the anime and the manga. So I don't understand the complaints about the differences, because I promise you, the spirit of Saint Seiya is very much alive in this film. The training scenes felt very much like Saint Seiya manga and anime come to life. And since this is a prelude, it hasn't damaged the known storyline. It just gives the backstory more depth. Phoenix Nero can still be the main antagonist in the next film. The Galaxian Wars can still introduce the other Bronze Knights, and they could still introduce the true villain who corrupted Sanctuary and forced the Gold Knight to rescue baby Athena in the first place. The only real difference is the Cassius story and the Black Knight's arc, but neither one should be deal breakers as long as the other arcs are intact, because Battle for Sanctuary, Poseidon, and Hades, those are the most important arcs. I really do hope people check this film out. It has room for improvement, yes. It's mediocre, but I do feel it was a good enough setup for the bigger universe, which would be unveiled in the sequels. It would be a real loss to have this series end with this film. Overall, I give the film a B- or 3.5 stars with high hopes for the franchise to continue. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe for future content.